welcome to another episode of the Social Wave podcast. My name is Sarah Francis, but everyone calls me Sez, and I am a YouTube content creator and a passionist for autism, epilepsy, and all of that. And in the podcast, I'm going to be talking about loads of different topics, and every once a month, I'm going to be interviewing various guests talking about relevant topics and issues from each community, from the news all the way to personal experiences. And in today's episode, I'm going to interview, to talk about a very, very special thing within the autism community. So let me introduce the one and only, all the way from across the pond. It's Alex, my honorary brother from Virginia. Hi, Alex. Welcome.
Sure. I didn't know ocean was called a pond. I meant it's like a pond to us is just a tiny little, body of water. And you compared it to the entire ocean.
Today, me and Alex are going to be having a discussion about autism spectrum disorder versus autism spectrum condition. So, Alex, would you like to tell us about yourself?
Well, I definitely am glad you mentioned Virginia, because I've been working all around there to make sure that we don't just elect any particular politician, but make sure that these individuals that run for office understand what autistic folks believe in, and they understand the motto, not about us, without us. And I definitely worked with my city within that last year, 2020, they had proclaimed Autism Month for the first time since 2008. I thought that was a major achievement, but I think this needs to be done every year. So it's always going to be a long road ahead, but I'm more than proud to be going on there with my wonderful sister.
Oh, when it hasn't been recognised for about, if it's 2008, about nearly 15 years, that is quite a shock, because you would never expect that, because in the UK, we tend to celebrate Autism Awareness Week every single year. But I get a bit jealous because we have a week and you guys have it a little bit longer than a week.
I wouldn't be that jealous.
No, because it is a thing, because you get to have it a little bit longer, really, and us in the UK don't really, because you make it like it's a very big deal. But in the UK, and I'm sorry UK people, I don't mean to judge, but it's kind of like you put your heart and soul into it a lot more than we do.
Everyone tries to put their elbow grease into something, like one way or another. I mean, I wouldn't say it has to do with UK versus US. It's everybody.
So you also mentioned that you were in office. Can you describe or say what you do?
I said that I was working with folks in elected office. I never actually ran for it. I basically try to show up at their town halls. I try to meet with them one-on-one to discuss my experiences within the school systems, as well as talk about what needs to be done, just whether it's at the state level, whether it's at the federal level, which I feel has been most noticed, or as local as our police and our Commonwealth attorney that works specifically on major cases of whether it's hate crimes against us, or whether it's us getting wrongfully abused in the justice system. Just ask Matthew Rushin. And it's, like I said, a never-ending fight, but it's worth going on.
Oh, it's getting there, actually. You've got a very positive enthusiasm that's going on there. So that is absolutely amazing. And then outside the political field, this is where we're actually going to get in, because when I shared the opinion polls, because I did opinion polls on Instagram to talking about which do you think it's appropriate to describe autism as a disorder or a condition, I knew that you jumped in at the opportunity, because this is something you really, really care about, Alex. And I knew you were going to be the very first person to jump on board, really. And so that this is why I can't stop smiling, really, because I know that we wanted to
Who says you have to?
For a while.
That's what I know you for. That's how I got to know your channel, your contagious smile.
Oh, and this is like a really big thing, because I did a little bit of research before we actually started filming, and I found out really that disorder and condition, when it comes to describing autism, or put simply as the autism spectrum, when it comes into the medical field, I found that there are some things that are really interesting. According to the medical terms and meanings I found on Google, the autism spectrum disorder, the meaning of it is a disruption to regular bodily structure and function. So this is things like behaving differently, having different strengths and difficulties. And then autism spectrum condition is an abnormal state of health that interferes with normal or regular feelings of well-being. So it's things like social interaction, sensitivity, anxiety, and high focus on hobbies. But I didn't really put autism spectrum down in the research, but I found out that the words in itself were separately through Google, and that came into mind of the things that were described. So that really clicked in straight away. But a lot of things that were really interesting was that everyone had a different opinion of it, but mostly everyone really didn't like the word disorder when it comes to the describing autism. And I'm wondering, because I know you have a very big feelings on this, Alex, so what do you think in general? What name do you prefer when it comes to or describing autism?
I definitely felt that the definition of condition definitely I could relate more to. I always just say autism spectrum because spectrum doesn't tend to mean anything bad per se. Like it's basically telling people not to put all of one kind into one box. Like I never liked that when doing political advocacy, and I wouldn't like doing that here. And condition, I would say, is kind of the same thing. People most often use that word when describing, like, I mean, again, I feel like people say a fair share of times good condition or poor condition, but I want to make sure that it's that while there can be certain struggles autism related, I don't want people to see autism by itself as anything to be ashamed of. It's and that's where the word disorder comes in, because disorder makes it sound like something's wrong with us. Like there's nothing wrong with me. Like the only thing I imagine would be wrong is where I may stand on the political spectrum, which applies to neurotypicals as well. Like it's just like there's nothing wrong with us. So that's just my thought for the day on it.
When you said this, it made me think about a discussion I had with my dad during the week. So that's earlier during April at the time of the recording of the podcast. And what me and my dad were talking about was something similar, but he used an example. Well, technically we both used an example that relates to that point, and that big example is stimming. And with stimming, this is something that it's not really described to use as autism spectrum disorder, but with stimming, it's kind of a feeling like that someone gets really embarrassed by it. And with stimming, it feels like it's very comfortable to do that for a person, especially if they are feeling worried and having a little bit of anxiety, and it helps them to calm down, such as like rocking and making noises, scratching their head, scratching parts of the body. And from a young age, this is what I found, from young ages all the way to a young adult, I found out that a lot of people get embarrassed by it. And sometimes it can be a parent, it can be a friend, or it can be a teacher. And with the stimming, some people tend to be like, oh no, you can't really stim because you have to like not do it in public. And when other people see it, they just feel like, if a person who has autism does stim, then maybe something's wrong with them, which isn't true.
The only thing that's wrong with us is that, or at least the way I've seen stimming, is like the fact that I've done it from thinking about things that happened to me before where others treated me with disrespect. So it's not as about what we're doing as it is about what others do to us more often than not. So I feel like if that's the case, I feel like that like we should be helped on that. Like we should be comforted about these kinds of things, and that people make mistakes all the time and it's fine. And so I've definitely done plenty of things like that. It's always been like where it's like I don't usually do those things in public, but it's probably because I'm more comfortable around people that I can trust, which makes me more eager to get folks to get vaccinated. You know what I mean? But whenever I'm by myself, like I feel that the trauma can really hit me hard. So I feel like people need to learn about not just stimming, but also the root causes.
When you mentioned vaccination, what did you mean by that when you mentioned it?
Well, there's a raging pandemic right now, and some people are refusing to get the COVID vaccine because they think it causes autism, or rather they think it causes blood clots when that only happened to like 6 women that in fact it probably didn't even have to do with the vaccine, but maybe they might have been pregnant or something. I'll let Dr. Fauci explain that.
Oh, I'm so shocked, really, because with the blood clotting for
my point was that my
sorry,
point was like that is what is feeding these hateful anti-vaxxers the myths about autism. That's my main point.
That's really interesting, because I know with the blood clotting that it can happen, that's happened, and I thought, oh yeah, but there have other parts that blood clotting that happens that have.
I was just giving other examples as to what's feeding anti-vaxxers. I got a little off topic for a second.
I was really shocked when some people said, oh, don't take the COVID vaccine because it'll contain you autistic. I was like, come on, really?
I know when I first felt these certain different traits, and it was long before I had my first shot.
Oh, really? So it's happened before you had the vaccine yourself? Oh.
No, I meant my first ever vaccine. Like it wasn't even the COVID one. Like it was other things like measles, smallpox.
Oh, measles, mumps, and rubella. That's what we call in the UK.
Back when I was a kid. So that's what I was talking about. But yes, COVID too.
That's really interesting in itself, really. I mean, it's not mentioned in the UK, but I'm so surprised it's mentioned in the US, because it's something that you really wouldn't think about. But there are like loads of people who actually think about not having a vaccine in a different way. But do you think that with any vaccination, including COVID, is it getting a bit too old for people to say a vaccine causes autism?
All these autism myths are outdated these days. It's kind of like with these organizations that promote it, like Autism Speaks, Applied Behavioral Analysis. They're all outdated, and yet they're constantly still being promoted because so many folks don't understand what autism really is, and then they'll think, oh, it's a disorder, something's wrong with them. And then they'll go to these organizations and they'll make so much money, and they use this kind of money to try to fund phony autism cures, and of course promote autism myths. As if you look on the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, it'll tell you all about what Autism Speaks uses its money for. And boy, does Autism Speaks have a lot of it.
Oh, yeah.
Bigger they are, the harder they fall, they say.
It does make you think that the disorder comes in from any treatment or the vaccine, because even though if people use the word disorder, they tend to think that people who are autistic behave differently, such as like they're being violent, for example.
That's what happened with Matthew Russian. Like he crashed his car by mistake because he was having a bit of a seizure, and then people thought he was trying to kill himself and others, and because of a common autism trait called echolalia, he ended up repeating that back, and the courts used that against him and sentenced him to 50 years in jail. And it was just completely it was just a complete misjudgment that went off the rails that quick, and it led to so much unnecessary stress. Like Matthew even got COVID-19 because of it, because of the prison neglect.
Oh gosh, that's really awful. I mean, when you first told me about it, I had to have a look, and that was really shocking within itself. And another example for the disorder and behaving differently was a few schools were like that as well in America.
Yeah, it's called the school to prison pipeline. It basically, and it's because of things like applied behavioral analysis, as I said earlier. Like they would train these teachers to think, oh well, it doesn't matter why the person did it. The point is they did it. But no, like people need to look into why in order to stop this bad behavior. And I tried getting a bill passed in the Commonwealth of Virginia that would put an end to these ridiculous seclusion practices. But then the rich folks at ABA and whatnot, they got involved, and as I was so excited to get my bill passed, I written to Governor Northam many times to get him to sign that bill that my delegate had worked on. And then all of a sudden, like I had realized, wow, these behavior quote unquote therapists, they just stole the bill from me, and all through the help of these teacher unions that were giving this rhetoric on, we have to judge the what if instead of the why. It was awful. And my delegate even knew about this. Like he even wanted the bill to be reformed into discussing why people behave so badly and making sure that we focus on that. But no, it was stolen from us.
It's like what do we call it in the UK? It's like sugarcoating. Or is that really? Because you've got to think that the hierarchy, I think that's right, the hierarchy tend to like use anything they can get, because when you think about disorder and condition when it comes to autism, it kind of sounds like not only it becomes political, but it's another way to make money.
They're all about money. They don't care for autistic lives matter. They just want to break the bank. And it's like, hey, and when I watch the videos about what they buy, I'm like, hey, maybe we want those cool mansions as well. In case you're not aware, a mansion is a really large and sexy looking house.
I love it how you call it sexy. sorry, carry on.
It looks really nice. Like I like it. I say that because it's like I've always wanted to have something like that, like especially if it's on the river or something. But other things they buy are really expensive boats that would have all sorts of activities that one never thought possible to do on a boat. I mean, they're just examples. If you look at a YouTube channel called The Richest, they'll show you about more things. But the main point I wanted to make is the wrong people have been getting these things. Like they need to care more about the people that help them shine. And
go on. Sorry.
Taken us for granted over the years, and it just. And that's another reason that I do what I do every day, because I think our system needs to be more fair. I think our justice system needs to have a proper definition, because it's they just don't understand us.
Well, yeah, I definitely agree, because I know that even though you have like a little bit of longer terms for sharing autism awareness, it feels like you're far behind from it in America compared to like UK. I mean, in the UK, we were like a little bit far behind, but I didn't know America was really far behind from what I heard. But then also, when looking at all of this, what do you think is the most inappropriate and negative when describing autism in the terms that you said, not only in a political way, but in like a finance or like in a personal way? Do you think disorder or condition is the wrong word to use for describing autism as autism spectrum?
So, disorder, I would definitely say wrong after what I described about it. Condition, it's hard to say because I feel like it's a mix of both right and wrong. I want people to see autism as like as rather a good thing, or maybe not good, but also just simply unique. It's like I don't want people to think that we're better or worse than neurotypicals because we're all human. And yeah, that's why I say just simply autism spectrum, because like it's there's no good or bad. It's just all different. That's because that's what I feel like a spectrum is.
I love the definition of that, but then also, this is going to sound like a little bit of like a little bit of a fun thing, and I don't know what you're going to think about it, but if you were the president of the United States right now after Joe Biden, what's the first thing you would do if you were running for either the Democrats or the Republicans party?
Oh man, this kind of question gives me a kick. But let's just say I want to make sure to include, you know, the autism community in as early as my inauguration speech, even as early as my campaign. Like, I want to talk about these things that really happen to us, these things that lead up to folks creating myths about us, the folks that see us as some demonic entity, and address why that is wrong, just to make sure that people understand that we're all human. And that's what I always want to look for in any president of any party. And I feel like I've trusted Joe on these kinds of things after he met with that kid Braden, because I feel like he relates to all of us because I'm a well-known stutterer like he is. And so, but I definitely think he could address more, because I didn't hear much from the White House during Autism Month. But who knows? I mean, we just got to keep nudging. We got to keep pushing our legislature to do the right thing. And we have to send the message out there that we're here, we're human, and we're not going anywhere.
Oh, brilliant. I couldn't really agree more. And then one final question, because I know we could go on forever, really, but I think for one final question, this is going to be a very important one because it will involve the medical field. Do you think doctors and nurses should change the words autism spectrum disorder to either autism spectrum condition or simply just autism spectrum?
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of doctors I can trust. I mean, they have understood that autism is not caused by any vaccines. So I feel like they're able to improve their own system. I trust them on that. But yeah, I think they should call it autism spectrum, and they should make it very clear with any and all patients that they see that it's okay to have autism. It's okay to be autistic, rather. That I think they, instead of telling parents what their autistic kids would quote unquote never be able to do, I think instead they should just encourage those individuals to be themselves. If it means getting into the political field, do it. If it means running a business, do it. If it means playing music, if it means swimming for a living, like if it means driving trains and buses. Just ask Darius McCollum. They should be given the opportunity to do it. And so I definitely hope that we can reform our healthcare system to make sure that they understand this. And I think a great first step is to pass a good healthcare plan for America.
Alex, thank you so much for being here today. I really do appreciate it. And it was really great to have you on board.
It's good to be on board. It's good to be here. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk to other folks on the spectrum about whatever there is to talk about. Like, I always want to be there for everyone, and I want to be able to make good changes. So keep this up, and I'll keep up my thing. We can do this.
Thank you so much to Alex for being here, and it was a pleasure to see you, and I hope everything across the pond works out in the future. Hopefully it's very positive. And until then, guys, I will see you next month for another Social Wave podcast. Take care of yourselves.
Bye.